Okay, we're rolling.
Hello, welcome to The Jungle. I'm your host, Amberly Lobo. Today, we are chatting to Robyn Lambird, who is a non-binary Australian Paralympian, creator, advocate, and all-round incredible human being.
Life is a jungle.
Despite only getting into para-athletics later in life, a no-excuses mindset and incredible work ethic meant within a few years, Robyn was on the podium at the Paralympics. In this conversation, we cover motivation, taking time out, rituals, what to do when things suck, and so much more. It is the amazing Robyn Lambird.
Welcome to the jungle with Amberly Lobo. Welcome to the jungle.
Robyn Lambird, welcome to the jungle.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So good to have you here. So we met at a FIFA World Cup event and connected there. But as background, we found out we had this really weird connection with our dads.
Yeah.
So my dad was your teacher at high school.
Yeah.
And then your dad and me were in the police force at the same time.
Yeah.
At the exact same time. I was in a very hardcore squad called the Bicycle Squad. And your dad was
He was
he was the total opposite. Am I right in saying he was the TRG? Is that right?
Oh, no, his brother in England.
Oh, okay.
Like, still, armed response.
Oh, okay. What was your dad doing? Just regular
He
general
was just doing regular. It was just a way to get here, basically. So, regular policing in Cottesloe, pretty cruisy.
Oh, okay. So it was not that much.
No.
But you did mention your parents obviously from England, and you were from England. Where did you grow up?
We grew up in the northeast, so I guess the closest place people would know would be Newcastle. Yeah, but a little town called Darlington. So, yeah.
And what were your memories, childhood memories growing up in that place?
Yeah, to be honest, I go back now and I'm like, wow, Perth has so much more to offer.
What? No one ever says that about that.
But literally. But growing up, it was great. We were always camping and around all the different historical sites and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
So in about 2006, I want to say, your parents moved across to Australia. What was the decision behind that?
I think just to give us a bit of a better life. Obviously the weather is so much better here, which is one thing, but also I was sort of going to be going into high school and they just wanted me to have a little bit better of an education and a bit of a better community around me. Because coming from a small town, pretty affected by poverty and stuff like that. So just to get that better life and to have a few more opportunities.
Yeah, and so it was when you came to Perth that you were actually diagnosed with cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
Maybe just for listeners, could you, to frame the conversation, perhaps tell them what CP is?
Yeah, so CP basically means that I had some brain damage before I was born, and that just affects my connection between my brain and my muscles. So my muscles are always sort of tight and don't always respond in the way that I intend them to. So it affects balance and coordination, fine motor skills, things like that.
Was that a late diagnosis?
Yeah, it's super late. So basically, in England, I was diagnosed with a different condition and that actually resolved. And at the time that resolved, there was only a handful of cases in medical literature of that ever happening. So they were sort of wow, it's a bit of a miracle. You'll probably just get better. Just take away the wheelchair, start doing some physio, you'll probably get better. And then I moved to Australia and obviously hadn't got better. And they were oh no, that was probably a secondary condition. We think you've had cerebral palsy this whole time. So
wow. And so then a couple of years later, at age 12, was that 2007, you had to get a big you had to go through a big surgery. What did that involve?
It's basically because my muscles are so tight, my tendons were all too short, so I couldn't straighten my legs and things like that. So I had surgery to lengthen all of those tendons and then to correct some of the bony deformities in my ankles and things like that had happened because of that.
That sounds full on.
Yeah, it was pretty full on. I was in casts from my toes to my hips and just out of action for a long time. Sure.
Is it a pretty safe surgery? Is it guaranteed?
Yeah, I mean, with any surgery, there's risks associated, and because I had so many wounds and stuff, there was worries about infection, and also they didn't know if the tightness of my muscles was sort of what was holding me upright. So there was always the option that they were going to do it, and then I wouldn't be able to walk again. So a lot of kids go through that surgery, but like I said, there's always sort of those risks associated with it.
So when you got out of this surgery, I'm just picturing you in sort of a hospital bed at this point, not knowing if you'd be able to walk again. What was sort of going through your mind?
Yeah, obviously it was just a wild experience. I was 12, so sort of becoming aware of myself and starting to get a bit self-conscious, as you're going in your teens, and then all of a sudden I'm in like the most vulnerable position in my life, like couldn't move. I had a epidural in, so I was paralyzed from the waist down, like couldn't go to the toilet by myself. I was getting like bed baths and everyone was like seeing me naked all the time and stuff. So yeah, I had my first panic attack like in hospital, full-blown panic attack. But also like I'm able to look back on that time with sort of like fond memories because I was just shown so much compassion by like the nurses, my family and like my friends. Like even, you know, my best friend at the time, she's still such a good friend now. She was in like my bridal party a few months ago because like we were just able to sort of be so intimate with one another and like create this like wonderful relationship because we were able to lean on each other and things like that. So
yeah, you touched on having a panic attack. Like I can only imagine at the age of 12 like how like what was going through your mind like lying there.
I think at the time like it was so simple. Like I thought I was going to be sick like because all the anesthetic and stuff, and I was like, oh my god, I can't move like to be sick. Like I'm just going to be sick all over myself. And then that just like sent me in a spiral. I'm like, oh man, I'm here. I can't move. I can't do anything. So yeah, like it was pretty bad, like hyperventilating, like the calcium built up in my joints. So I had, and it was pretty though. Like I realized then it wasn't just in cartoons, like they give you a paper bag. So I was like, even then I was laughing. I'm like, this is crazy. Like I'm breathing into a paper bag, like in the cartoons. So yeah.
How important was it, I guess, to have like your family and friends around you at that time?
Oh, so important. Like I said, number one, I couldn't do anything for myself. So without having them there, like I wouldn't have been able to cope. Like even my grandparents flew over from England for like 8 weeks just to help look after me and things. And and then just having friends like to sort of keep socializing and keep my spirits up. Otherwise I would have just been, like sat at home for months like by myself. So yeah.
Well, what I find really amazing about this is it's 2007, you're age 12, you're in hospital, you've just had this surgery, you're covered in bandages. Like you said, you don't know what is going on. And at this point, para-athletics, the Paralympics is not even like an idea in your mind. It's like not even like something you've ever done before. Yet, I guess if we fast forward 12 years, you go on to become the number 3 in the world, which is...
It's pretty crazy.
It's so crazy. Like, and I just have so much admiration for that because I think it speaks to like not only an incredible amount of hard work, but also an incredible amount of like resilience and mental toughness. Like that is, you don't just become good like from nothing, right? And so I thought it'd be kind of cool for listeners if you talked us through sort of that journey from hospital bed to becoming a world champ. So starting with the recovery, like what does that look like?
So basically like because I'd been out of action for so long and just not been active at all, like I'd lost any kind of fitness that I had beforehand, but also like I said, I wasn't really socializing outside of my like small group of friends just because everything was so hard. It was so hard to get out and about and get around, and I really needed a way to sort of like build up my fitness and my strength and to socialize that wasn't just going to therapy, like because it's just draining for a kid, I think. So luckily my dad was working at a gym with Amber Merritt's mum, who's like one of the world's best wheelchair basketballers, and she was like, oh, just come along to like wheelchair basketball and get involved. So I originally sort of just started doing that for fun, and then really just fell in love with being able to be competitive with other people that were like me, because I'd always been active, because like I said, my dad was a professional fighter and my mum was super active, so I'd always sort of done sports and activities, but I'd never been able to be competitive. So I fell in love with that, and then because I have some impairment in my hands, like basketball wasn't really the right fit. I did that up until like sort of a junior state level, but then moved into wheelchair rugby, and then finally into athletics just through like a come and try day. A few years later, I sort of jumped in a chair, and the coach there realised that I had some potential in that sport, and then I just started training pretty seriously from then.
What was it about what the coach said? So I'm picturing some like coach came up to you and was just like, you've got like, what was it about them that said that got you like, okay, I could maybe do this?
To be honest, I really don't know, because I look at videos of when I first started and I was like, how did that coach say anything? like I'm like weaving in and out of lanes like so slow, but obviously she saw something in me and she was like, I really think you should like consider giving this sport a serious go, because I can see like the Paralympics in your future. So I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool, like I should probably give it a go, like give it a try. So
I think it's so important to have people in your life that speak to your potential. I mean, my brother is that for me. So like he has this thing where he always thinks I'm thinking too small. And so he actually brought me this eagle. You can't see if you're listening to the podcast, but there's like this eagle on the mic. But my brother always says I think like a pigeon. So he brought me an eagle and he tried to find a pigeon, but he got a kookaburra, and he made me hang the eagle above my desk. And so whenever I'm on the phone to him telling him about this idea, he'll be like, mate, you're down there with the pigeon. I need you to rise like the eagle. But like,
so
it's so cute. Like, big shout out to my brother, Jamie. But like, he's that person who sees something in myself that I can't see. Like, how important for you at that moment was it to have this coach come along and just be like, no, you are like Paralympics material. Like,
yeah, like I said, like, I don't know how she saw that, which like still blows my mind to this day. But like for her to have belief in me when to me it looked like I couldn't barely push the chair. Like, that's incredible. And then she was sort of like a volunteer coach up until the last few years of my career, and invested so much like time and effort into me, and I just wouldn't have been on that journey without her. So
that's what I was going to say. It's amazing how these like small conversations or these small little moments can turn your life into a whole different trajectory. Like, do you think you even would have got into it had that
No, like I wasn't even intending, like when I went to the Come and Try Day, I was just trying to support the organisation that looks after all the wheelchair sports here in Perth, and I had no intention of doing athletics. Like I was sort of still into my basketball a little bit and getting into rugby, and I was like, why would I want to do that sort of thing? But then just her belief in me and her like saying, nah, like seriously think about it, was like what put me on that path. So
Life is a jungle.
So you've gone to a Come and Try Day. You've walked out with a vision to go, to the Paralympics. I mean, what did that process look like? Like, was that all of a sudden like you just locked into a lot of training with this coach?
Yeah, it seemed like it. Like, I was sort of training like quite a few days a week already at that age, and like starting to get in the gym, and then like, it was already talks about me going to international competitions to sort of pitch myself against other athletes. And so it really was sort of like a highway.
Were you naturally, like when you started training, were you like naturally good, or like was it like
that's what I'm saying, like I still don't think about it, like, but
you made yourself that good?
I guess I was. I don't know. I think because my parents, like from a young age, had always encouraged me to try everything and always encouraged me to be so active. I think maybe for a person with a disability, I was a little bit naturally more athletic than someone else my age. But
did you find it hard? Like, obviously you went from like a rugby to basketball to something that's super on your own. Did you adjust to that quite easily?
I think at first, like, it was just like an exciting challenge, but then definitely like after a while I struggled a little bit because I sort of missed that community, and I missed having a team to rely on. Like in an individual sport, it's you, like, you're the only person that can mess up, you're the only person that can get the results, and you're not having that same sort of like feedback, and also like, you don't really feel like going to training, but it's okay because my team's there and I like to chat. There's like no one there. So it was definitely a struggle, and it definitely took me a while to wrap my head around it and to learn that sort of like intrinsic motivation as well.
I think a lot of people just assume that athletes like yourself are just these highly motivated people, and they like spring out of bed and they've got like all this energy and all this motivation, and they can't wait to get to the gym. But you do have days and moments where you're like, 100%. I cannot be bothered, right?
For sure, yeah.
And what are your sort of processes on those days? Like, how do you then like still get to the gym, still do the training, still do the reps?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a routine and to have discipline, because like I said, motivation like comes and goes, but like if you discipline, you show up, you get there, then that's what's going to carry you through. And I think it's even showing up on the harder days is what makes you a good athlete, because you're able to push through those situations. But just having a really strong routine and just turning up, because I think sometimes the hardest battle is getting there. Like, yourself, like you go to the gym, once you start doing some of the challenges yourself, you get those endorphins and all that, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be actually. You just sort of have to make yourself go, and then once you're there, it's rarely as bad as you think it's going to be. And even if it is, it's like, well, at least you've done a session, a session that maybe your opponent hasn't done, or another person in your career or whatever it is. So yeah,
I have like a 5-minute rule because I'm like, just get to the gym and do like 5 minutes of core and then you can go home. And then once I'm there,
you're never going to leave after 5
minutes.
No.
You're like, I always end up talking to someone and then I like do another thing and you stay for at least 30 minutes. But I always just tell myself, just go for 5 minutes. And then like you said, the rest of it sort of just like takes care of itself.
Yeah, and your body like gets used to it. You know, if you're training that many days a week, like even if you're tired, your body's like knows what it needs to do. So.
Well, I'd be curious because you were training for this in Perth, which, I mean, sport goes down, but I'm imagining there wasn't a big community. So how on earth were you training, but you weren't, I'm guessing you didn't really have any competition alongside you?
No, I used to race against the runners, some who were like para-athletes, so runners with cerebral palsy and things like that, but they were always, you know, quite far ahead of me because in a chair it takes a little bit of time to get your momentum, your top speed. So yeah, even racing against people, they'd sort of be crossing the finish line and I'd be halfway through, you know. And then like training again, it was literally just me and my coach, and sort of embedded myself a little bit in like the para-athlete group of runners and things like that, just to get a little bit of socialization and to be able to have a chat and feel a part of a community. But yeah, for a lot of it, I was sort of by myself and then going away to these comps, which had quite a lot riding on them, really. So yeah, that was pretty difficult, like mentally, to go from just like competing against yourself and to then competing against someone who you think might be a lot better than you, you know. So
yeah, that's a tough one to train for. Did your coach have any sort of like tactics that she'd give you to try and imagine that commentary?
Yeah, I mean, like people like, I used to hate like sports psychology and stuff at first. Like I just didn't buy into it, and I think that was part of the problem. But I remember like I used to have sports psychologists coming down like on a scooter, like riding next to me, like yelling at me, like just trying to sort of build some kind of atmosphere. And for me to just be able to realize that, you know, like on a competition, I'm not going to be the only person I'm thinking about.
And so with this, for listeners who maybe don't quite understand the sport, you would travel and compete in different places around the world. Is that right?
Yeah. So like our major program here in Australia for track and road was based in Canberra. So I'd go to the AIS a lot and train there with the other wheelchair athletes. And then we'd have competitions like, around Australia. But like our main competition every year was the Swiss Grand Prix. We'd get hundreds of athletes from all around the world going there because the track was really fast. So that's sort of where you would go to get qualifying times or to break world records and things like that.
What was your first experience there like?
Yeah, it was good. Like I said, I think my first experience, I preferred it because I was an underdog. I was like, no one expects anything of me. There was no pressure. So I had like a really good time there and performed really well. It was sort of, I found it harder as I got later on into my career when there was more pressure sort of riding on me, and I knew where I should be amongst the athletes and things like that. Yeah.
I know like starting off in your career as well, you had a bit of a stop-start where a year in, you sort of decided to stop. Could you talk us through that?
Yeah, I think people that don't know much about wheelchair racing, like it's just a super uncomfortable sport, especially for someone like me who has feeling in my legs, because you're actually sort of sitting on your legs, tucked up in this aerodynamic position. So I was going to training by myself, just being in pain the whole session, feeling like I hadn't mastered the art of even pushing the chair. So I was just like frustrated that I wasn't moving the way that I thought I should be moving. And like I said, coming from a rugby background where that sort of came a little bit more naturally to me, I had this whole team around me. It was fun. It was like I was doing something different every day, whereas with athletics, you know, I was just going push 100 meters over and over and over again in pain. I was like, man, I can't do this. Like, this is not for me. And I'm super grateful that my parents like let me step away from it. Like I know a lot of parents like push their kids to do things, but I think I would have just ended up really resenting them if they'd done that. I'm super glad that they let me step away from it to sort of get a little bit of clarity, like away from that frustration, and to realize like what I needed to do to be able to realistically like stick with the sport. And also like, you know, they let me step away, but they were kind of like, are you sure you're going to get this huge opportunity? I'm like, oh, probably not. It's like, yeah. So I think it was good for me. And I sort of realized, you know, like I needed to do a lot more physio. I needed to have like really good recovery. I needed to make sure I was like mentally stimulated and my program was changing enough that it kept me like engaged. And then, I came back to the sport like a much better athlete, I think.
Do you know that's so wild? Because I don't think a lot of people would know that you're in pain in that thing. Do you know what I mean? I would just assume that was not a painful thing at all. That blows my mind.
Yeah, like I ended up getting like Botox injections, like all kinds of things, just to be able to relax my muscles enough to sit in the chair. So
that is
it's pretty full on.
Is that standard? Is that like for a lot of para-athletes?
Yeah, so I think obviously like if you're like paralyzed, it's not so much of an issue because you can't feel your legs. But for people in my sort of situation with CP, like all of us are sort of always like getting out of our chairs, like I don't
think a lot of people would do that. I wouldn't be like, oh, she's in pain, she's putting through so much pain to do that. That's wild. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people could probably relate to that in that like maybe they've like got this dream, they've started this dream, and for whatever reason, maybe they've come up against a bit of pain, but they've hit pause. And decided to step away from it. Could you maybe give them some advice on how to like get back into the game or take the next right step?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, like they are scared to step away from something because they're like, if I step away, I just won't go back, and like, oh, what am I giving up to do that? And like for me, like I said, like people were saying that I had the potential to go to the Paralympics. So I was stressing like, how am I going to step away from this? Yeah. I can't keep doing it because it's like, I'm not happy at all. Yeah. And I think sometimes you just need to step away from the situation and sort of lay out all of your options. I was having like pros and cons sheets, all kinds of things like that. And I think, like if it's truly something you want to do, you'll come back around to it, and you'll end up going back, and you'll end up learning how to do it in a more efficient manner.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's so hard to trust yourself or just give yourself that space.
I think so. I think it's just giving yourself space and then trusting your instincts. Like, there's no point in doing something if you're not going to get any kind of fulfillment out of it. Like, you're always going to do better at something that, not necessarily that you enjoy, but you're getting some kind of fulfillment out of it.
Life is a jungle.
So you've been training your butt off, and now I know you're also in a lot of pain. And then 2019 comes around, and this is the World Para Athletics Championships. And to set context for everyone, this is sort of like the big qualifiers that you have to do well in to get to the Paralympics. How were you feeling going into this event?
I was feeling incredible going into that event. Like, I'd had the best season of my career to date. Like, every race, it just seemed like I was getting a new personal best. I was getting faster every race. Like, I just felt unstoppable. Like, my body felt so good. Mentally, I felt in a really good position, and I had a lot of confidence going into my first major championships, knowing that like I was ranked within the top in the world.
And how many years at this point had you been training for?
Whoa,
was it years? It was years.
Yeah, it was a few years.
Yeah. Okay, so you've put in time. You've made sacrifice. You've done the reps. You've hit the gym. Yeah. And then curveball. Do you want to tell everyone what happened?
I rocked up to that comp, feeling great. Doing my usual training sessions sort of the week before the competition in Dubai, getting used to the weather, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, my chair just like it's not as good as it could be. Like, it's not going 100% completely straight. Yeah. So my teammates like, oh yeah, no worries. Like, we'll fix it up for you and for your race tomorrow, and it'll be all sweet. You'll probably like gain a few milliseconds, which in athletics is huge. I was like, yeah, sweet, let's do that. And then rock up for the competition the next day, do my like warm up outside of my chair, and I'm like, ready to do my warm up for this competition, the biggest competition of my life to date. I get in my chair, and my chair swerves across like 5 lanes. No. I'm like, what is happening? And then, we called the engineer over, like frantically trying to fix my chair. They're calling my name for the call room. So like before you go to race, you have to check in at a call room.
Oh no.
And they're like, Robyn, last call. I'm like, oh man. So basically I did no warm up in my chair, and I was just like a hot mess at this point. Like, my heart rate must have been like 190. I was like shaking, like trying to turn my like speedometer on, and I could barely turn it on. I was like, it's all over. Like, it's all over Red Rubber. Yeah. And then needless to say, because mentally I was just shot, I went into that race ranked 3rd in the world and ended up finishing 5th in my slowest time in a couple of years. So it was pretty devastating.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. Like, how were you post race? You must.
Yeah, man, I was just devastated. Like, I felt like obviously I'd let myself down, but I'd also like let down all my friends and my family and my coach, and I was just like, oh man, this was my chance to sort of like really make a name for myself and put myself in a really good position for the the Paralympics, which was supposed to be in 2020. So
I just like, after all the training, all the years, all the reps, all the gym sessions, all the pain, the starting, the stopping, the coming back, to be on your day and in your big moment, that would have, I think, like, I can't believe you composed yourself enough to come fifth. I mean, that is still massive. I think I would have been like in a corner crying. Like, at least you had that mindset to like get out and do it. Like, what did your dad's obviously, he's like a big into sport and training. Like, what were they sort of saying to you?
They were like, they were obviously like, like you've made it to the World Championships. Like, a lot of people don't even do that. Like, that's incredible. But like, also, I guess, both of my parents sort of coming from like sporting backgrounds and being quite competitive themselves, they were like, well, now was like, you need to do the work, analyze like what went wrong and make sure that that doesn't happen again, which was like pretty full on at the time. I was like, I just don't even want to talk about it. I just don't even want to talk. Why are you asking me about what I did wrong? Like, nothing. I'm so mad right now. But like, with hindsight, it was good because it put, like I said, sort of set me up for those next competitions.
Well, that's what I always, I firmly believe, like, some of our biggest like failures or pain points in our life do set us up to learn if we sit with them and, like your parents said, analyze them. If we have, that awareness around them, we can learn for our future. Like, what were the big lessons you took away from that?
I think, like, immediately I knew, like, when I sat and thought about it, that it was my mental state that beat me on that day. Like, I'd had competitions before where I hadn't warmed up because the warm-up track was a grass track or something like that, or like I just didn't have time, or for whatever reason, and I'd still done well. And it was because I'd put all this pressure on myself, like, this is the biggest competition of my life. I felt like everything needed to be perfect. So like, I came home and I was like, oh, I guess it's time to do this sports psychology thing. Like, and immediately sort of started doing that, and just sort of was like, you never know what's going to happen on the day. There's a million things that could go wrong when you're an athlete, or any occupation really. Like, there's always things that can go wrong. But you just have to be prepared to put on your best no matter what. And I think, like I said, I'd done all the training. It wasn't like all of a sudden my body didn't know what to do. Like, it was all mental, really. So that sort of put me in a really good position, I think, for the Paralympics, because I was like, okay, well, that's like the next big hurdle. Like, I'm going to keep getting faster, my body's going to keep getting stronger, but if I don't put in the work to this thing, like, I'm not going to land.
So what was some of that mindset work that you did?
So again, it was just like, doing sports psychology, sort of learning that, like, for as smart as your brain is and everything that it can accomplish, like, it doesn't know the difference between being nervous and being excited. Like, you think about how you feel when you're nervous and you think about how you feel when you're excited. It's the same thing. Like, you get, butterflies in your stomach, your heart rate increases, all those things. Like, your body's preparing you to do something. So if you can just sort of tell yourself, I'm excited, like, I'm ready to show the world, like, what I'm capable of, that's, like, one of the biggest things. Like, it's the person that believes in themselves and can sort of go out there, because everyone's going to be nervous. Like, if you're not nervous, there's something wrong with you. But it's just like being able to deal with that and making space for those feelings too. I think the more you try and run away from them, like, the worse it gets. And then also, like, just before the Paralympics, actually, like, my dad started doing some visualization and some meditation with me, and I think that really sort of just took me over the edge and put me in a fantastic spot. So I feel dad.
What was his meditations or visualizations? Were they like?
So I mean, like, it was weird. I'm like sat in my little cardboard bed, like, in Tokyo, and Dad's like, I think we should do some visualization. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be so hard to listen to my dad and, like, not just laugh and, like, take it seriously. But I thought, this is, like, literally the biggest competition of my life. This might be the only chance that I get to come to the Paralympics. Like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And, it could mean the difference between winning a medal and not winning a medal. So, I sort of sat there and listened to him. And it was just about, like, imagining myself on the day that I've been most confident in my life, and how did that feel? And, what did my body feel like? What was I hearing? What was I seeing? And it was, like, imagining that as I went out to race, just that confident energy. And, like, I swear it was the first time in my career that I'd gone into a race and not been nervous and just been excited to do what I trained so many years for. So,
and spoiler alert, no big deal. You came third.
That was pretty good too.
How did that feel?
Yeah, that was incredible. I mean, you can't ask more than that. Paralympic debut, to end up on the podium. It's just incredible. I think most of all, I just felt relieved, like, once the race was over, because you spent so much time and put in so much effort.
Life is a jungle.
thing we didn't touch on was that COVID sort of happened in the middle of this. So we've had the 2019 drama, and then you've still qualified for the Paralympics, and then you're rearing to go, and then a little thing called the coronavirus. I mean, I feel like all the obstacles are being thrown at you. So what was that a blow to your training when COVID hit?
I think like at the time, I was like devastated because you're just like ready to go, you know, you're like your whole training program is like leading up to your peaking at that point. It also meant like all of the international competitions that I was due to go to were all called off. And, you know, if I thought I was lonely on the track before, like I really was. Like it was just me and my coach. Like all the athletes had different allocated times that we were allowed to go to the track and like be by ourselves and train. But like, again, with hindsight, like it was probably a good thing for me. I think going to the Paralympics and not having those insane crowds, like having that to deal with, like on top of everything else, like just going there and almost feeling like it was just like another local race. So it worked in my favor because like I said, that in combination with the fact that I've been doing a lot of mental work just meant that I was like confident and just like excited to push. So
yeah, it would have been a kind of eerie experience. Right? So you would have been on the podium and there was no one in the
there's no one there. Like it's a 90,000 seater stadium, and there's like a few physios and like coaches from other countries like clapping like and that was it. That was really wild. And and then literally like 2 days after that, I flew back to Australia and spent 2 weeks in hotel isolation.
Oh my God, how lucky.
I know, it was crazy. So
with, I guess, in that time, the corona COVID period, where you sort of didn't have, I guess, the distraction of all the races that you normally have to go to and the training and all these different things, did that change your perspective in any way?
I think like it changed the training a little bit because usually like during that summer period, our schedule is like so hectic. You just constantly sort of recovering from competitions and getting ready for the next one. But because we didn't have any of those, we were able to really sort of knuckle down and work on all of my weaknesses, like I said, like the mental aspect of it, but also like the little imperfections in my race and things like that. So again, it was sort of like silver linings, like allowed me to become a better athlete, I think, over that time period. So
I know you touched on it just then again, improving that mental aspect. I know I was really late to the game on that as well. I would be so, because I love sports, I'd be so obsessed with like the training component of it, and I'd almost put all my eggs into that basket, making sure I was like fit enough and this enough and that. And I'm just talking, I'm a social soccer player, so I can hardly compare myself to you. But like, it was only when I decided to invest more time into that mental component that then I was really able to lift a whole nother level.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think I was exactly the same. Like, I really enjoyed the challenge of pushing myself, and I could go to training and train hard like every day. That wasn't an issue for me. And I sort of just thought, like, why do I need this like mental thing? Like, as long as I'm like strong and I'm fast, like, what does that matter? But if you're not in the right space mentally, your body just can't perform. And I think that I was learning that was getting the better of me, and that I needed to invest in that. And I think a lot of the times, like, you know, most of the people you're racing against at something like the Paralympics have done the same amount of training, right? Like, everyone's training 6 days a week, so it's really who's the most mentally tough wins the race usually.
Yeah, I think that's kind of almost like on the highest level of any industry that you're in, right? Like,
sure.
Everyone who's at the top is fast, is strong, is this, is that. And it's like that mental edge is almost like that 1%. Like, yes, but can you perform when your wheelchair completely breaks and goes? Do you know what I mean? But like, you just, and it's only when you start to do that work where you're like, oh my God, that's when you get that edge.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, so much admiration for you. Congratulations. But it doesn't stop there. I mean, it's one thing to set this dream of going to the Paralympics, but then it's another thing to set a whole nother dream and completely pivoting. So you've become third in the world. And anyone looking on the outside would be like, oh, that's it. She's going to keep on going in that direction. But in total plot twist, you decide to step away and pivot back into rugby. Where did that decision come about?
So I think, obviously, like, for whatever the 6 years or whatever we were training, like, the big goal was to get to the Paralympics and hopefully to medal. And we'd sort of set all of our focuses on that. And then sort of, like, coming up towards that, to be honest, I was sort of like, it was taking a bit of a toll on me, just like mentally and physically doing that sport by myself in pain, like all of those things that we spoke about before. And I'd finished in Tokyo and I'd medaled and I felt such a sense of accomplishment, but I was also like, I don't know if this journey is like serving me anymore. I'm not getting the same kind of fulfillment that I was getting out of it before. And I think I need to just do something that I'm a bit happier with. And I knew sort of the Commonwealth Games was like a year after that, and that was going to be in England. So I was like, that's perfect. Like all my family will get an opportunity to come and watch me compete, perhaps for the only time. So we sort of put another year aside to train for that. And throughout that year, like I just felt like it was getting harder and harder, and people were starting to notice. Like I was going to the track and I was having, some of the athletes that I'd have a good chat with coming up to me being like, what's wrong? Like, you look really, like, just sad. And I'm like, oh, man, like, if other people are noticing, like, this is not good. Like, and I was sort of starting to, like, resent my coach a little bit and, like, getting frustrated with her. And I knew it, like, it wasn't her fault. Like, I just wasn't getting the same kind of fulfillment out of it. And I thought, I can't keep doing this. Like, even though I was like climbing the world rankings and everyone was really impressed with me and I was like a funded athlete for the first time ever, I was like, what's the point in all of that? Like, if I'm not happy. And I knew like deep down I'd always loved rugby and I'd loved that environment, and that going to rugby training was never a chore. Like, I never felt like, oh man, I have to go to training tonight. Like, I always enjoyed it. And I was like, I think that's where I needed to be. And luckily for me, like the rugby team had been asking me to go over there for a long time, and I'd been like, nah, we've got this athletics thing going on. And I just thought, like, I'm not getting any younger. I do want to have a family at some point. Like, if I'm going to do it, I should do it now. And yeah, I'm very grateful that like all my friends and my family supported me to do that. So,
I mean, like you say it like that and it sounds so easy, but I guess to give our listeners a bit of context, like becoming a funded athlete is really difficult.
Yeah.
And is it that you have to have gone to the...
Yeah, you basically have to be like within the top few athletes in the world and really win a medal to get any kind of...
So you had kind of just gotten that, and it's like all this work and you just become this funded athlete. And like you said, your trajectory is going up. Was it hard to make what in the end helped you make the decision? Was it another pros and cons session?
Yeah, a little bit. No, it was definitely hard because like me and my partner had sort of just moved out of home. Yeah, I was sort of paying all of our bills and stuff, and I felt like I was in a really good spot where I was like managing my work and athletics really well, so I was on a decent income and things like that. And I was like, man, I'm about to give up a lot, to do this. But I think I always knew that like, worst comes to worst, like I had that family and that support network to fall back on, which I think is really important. But also I was like, I'm going to end up blowing up, like if I don't stop. Like either way it's going to end, I'm not going to do it anymore, I think. So I might as well try and get into the rugby and sort of get back on that path, but in a way that I'm enjoying myself a little bit more.
It is like, that takes so much courage. I can't even imagine. I guess like a lot of people listening could probably relate to that, and maybe they're like pursuing a dream that was maybe once their dream, but it no longer is, or they're doing something that they just know deep down is not them, and they should make the pivot, but they're struggling with making that decision because it's almost like you've got to be comfortable to step back into like an uncertain. You kind of knew where you were going
from the bottom.
You were starting from the bottom again. Like, how can you give them any tips on like sort of how to have the confidence to make that decision?
Again, like I think it's really hard, and like I said, I was lucky that I had that support network around me. So if I didn't, like I don't even know if I would have made that decision. So it's being able to have those people around you that have got your best interests at heart as well. That's a big thing. But I think it's also knowing that like if you're not getting fulfillment out of something, if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to reach your true potential. And I think if there's another dream, like, and there's another pathway where you might be able to find that, you're probably going to be more successful. I think my like career in rugby is going to be a lot longer because I'm just so invested in it, and I want to see the team do well, and going to training isn't a chore, and so I think I'm sort of setting myself up in a better way. And then things outside of my sport have become better as well because I'm not constantly frustrated, I'm not burnt out, I'm not tired, so I'm able to invest my time and energy into other things as well. So
well, the rugby choice has already paid off because you went to New Zealand and no big deal, these guys won.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, we won the New Zealand Nationals. And then sort of our development team put up a good fight against their development team and won that competition as well. So it's really awesome. Like rugby in Australia is in an awesome position where we've got a lot of depth. Does mean that everyone's sort of fighting for spots for that Paralympic team, but I'm also just really enjoying that challenge as well, not just having an easy ride into something. So
Robyn, you are honestly so inspirational. Like, to achieve one dream is one thing, to do another one is another thing. I guess, can you give any advice to people out there who are maybe like starting on their path, like how to keep stepping forward?
Yeah, I think it's like trusting the process. Like, nothing worth having is going to come easy. You know, like I said, like athletes, I don't know a single athlete that's not had like injuries where they've thought it could almost end their career, or, you know, setbacks where they felt like they were in a really good position and then not performed, or, you know, had financial struggles and things like that. But it's the ones that are able to sort of trust that process, keep showing up, keep putting in the work, that usually end up on top. Like, it's not always the most talented athlete or the most gifted like individual. It's the one that can just like keep grinding, and the one that can surround themselves with people that believe in that as well. Like I said, like, yeah, my coach really believed in me, and I sort of got friends that, you know, were able to support me in doing that, not expecting me to go out partying all the time and things like that. So, yeah, I think it's just, trusting in yourself, believing in yourself, knowing it isn't going to be easy and that you are going to have those like ebbs and flows, but just, keep grinding, really.
Oh my God, I am honestly so inspired. What are you like most passionate about right now? Like, what is your like...
Obviously, like I still have that dream of making another Paralympic team, 2 different sports. Like, that would be amazing. And whether that happens in Paris or whether that happens, you know, a few years down the line, like that's obviously my big focus in my life. But also, you know, with things like the Disability Royal Commission and things like that coming out, I'm really passionate about seeing people with disabilities having the opportunity to achieve their true potential, and sort of spreading awareness for that, and just things like that. I sort of want to uplift my community and use my sport to do that.
Oh my God, well, you are absolutely nailing it. Robyn, you are such an inspiration. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Robyn Lambird on Instagram is probably your best bet.
We will find it there. And just lastly, I always say life is a jungle. So do you have any parting advice for our listeners on how to navigate the jungle of life? I feel like we've sucked you dry, but I just felt we got
put me on the spot. No, I think I heard a great quote, you know, the other day. It's when you become accustomed to hard things, life becomes easy. I think that's so true. I think, like, you know, if you can learn from your mistakes or your failures, and you can build that resilience and that adaptability, like, you're going to go far. I think that's one of the reasons that I'm so grateful to have had a disability, because a lot of things haven't come easy to me, and I feel like I'm in a really good position to then be able to succeed, because I can just keep pushing and know that it'll come eventually, like if it's meant to happen. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Underdog advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Robyn Lambird, thank you so much. And all the best with everything. I can't wait to see you on every podium, whatever that may be. I mean, it's rugby this time. Could be basketball next time. I don't know about that.
Life is a jungle.
I think Robyn's story really shows that you can have whatever you want if you're willing to put in the work. So what are you waiting for? If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and share it out with your family and friends. Also, hit me up on socials at Amberly Lobo. And for more information on the show, including behind-the-scenes pics and videos, head across to amberlylobo.com. Have an amazing day, whatever you are up to. And remember, life is a jungle. Invest in an appropriate pair of shoes.